VLAN trunking protocol, well, it's not on the Cisco blueprint, so why are we covering it? We'll find out right here next on IT Pro TV.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
That's right, we're continuing on in our Encore show right now, and we're going to be talking about VLAN trunking protocol, VTP, and we need to ask Anthony Sequeira, why are we actually covering this if it's not in the blueprint itself? So Anthony, what's happening here? What's going on?
You know, we really do due diligence. We run out, and on the very first day of the exam's availability, I took a look at the Encore exam, and yeah, VTP is alive and well, and I know it's that way in CCNA too.
Right.
So let's take a look at this protocol. You know, for years, I petitioned Cisco to rename it. They don't listen to me. I guess they don't listen to their CCIEs about renaming protocols.
I got to ask, what did you want them to rename it to?
I want them to rename it to the VLAN Management Protocol.
Yeah, that would be better.
There's one VLAN trunking protocol. It makes it sound like 802.1q or something.
Yeah.
You know, now there is one thing I do like about the name, Ronnie, and that is it can only do its magic over trunks.
Right.
So at least it's a reminder for us that if we're not trunking, it's not going to work. Let's jump to the command line and take a look at it. What I've set up for us here, Ronnie, is our topology that we've been working with in Encore for layer 2. And, you know, bunch of trunks, great. And I've got those trunks set up, awesome, because as we've established, without them, we couldn't do VTP. Now, here's the big command that I want our learners to know. It's show VTP status. And we're in the default VTP configuration here. So what we see is that we're version 1 to 3 capable, Ronnie, but we're running version 1. We are not doing VTP pruning. VTP pruning is pretty cool, actually. What that's going to do is it's going to dynamically clear VLANs from going down trunk links where it's not necessary. So if you don't have VLAN participation down at the end of that trunk, it'll dynamically trim off that traffic. Note, we're not doing it, and I want you to know how to do it, so we'll cover that in a moment. So those are some key fields to look at, and then this is hugely important. Right. The default mode is VTP server mode. That means you can create VLANs on this device. And in fact, all of the devices in our topology, since they're all in the default server mode. But VTP really isn't set up here because notice there is no domain name set. So as I remember how this protocol works, if we go in and we do this, VTP domain IT Pro TV, the minute we give the domain, I think some things are going to change. So let me end that config. Let's do our show VTP status once again. We can see that we now have a VTP domain set. Let's slide over to a neighboring device and do show VTP status. And look at this. It grabbed the domain name over the trunk. So now we're really able to take advantage of VTP. Let me prove that. We'll do a show VLAN brief, and we can see that there's VLANs 1313 and 2424. Let's do this. Let's create a test VLAN. So we'll do VLAN 999, and I'll name it test, and we'll end. And you know that the check we're going to do. Let's slide over to switch 1 and do a show VLAN brief. And look at that. There's VLAN 999 test that magically appeared over on switch 1 thanks to the VLAN trunking protocol. Pretty cool. So how would we turn on the VTP pruning feature? Well, you would go to any of your server systems with VTP and just turn it on. So if I do VTP pruning on one of my servers here, that should turn the feature on. Let's go over to switch 2 and do show VTP status, and look at that.
Enabled.
VTP pruning mode is enabled. So please be aware of that. go to any one of your servers, Ronnie, in the VTP domain, turn on the pruning, and that's all you got to do. It will propagate that out to the environment.
Now, let me ask this because we're talking about that server mode right now. So would that actually be the same if we did that on a transparent server?
Great question. So, and you read my mind. Look at what I was just going to show the students.
Okay.
I did a VTP mode question mark because let's review that. So we have been working with the default mode of server on these devices. Note we could switch it to client. When you take a switch and you switch it to the VTP client mode, now you cannot create VLANs on that device.
Right.
It can only get the VLANs from the server. So that's hugely important. You wouldn't be able to set VTP pruning mode on the client device. You brought up an interesting one, transparent.
Right.
A lot of people take all of their switches and they put them all in VTP transparent mode. Why they do that is it's effectively stopping this behavior. And their fear is that it gives too much power to the VTP server system, the ability to manipulate all those VLAN databases. So they go and they set transparent mode, and that says, okay, we won't allow changes. We will forward VTP information, but we will essentially not listen to VTP information. But you note, Cisco did give us an off mode.
Right.
So that's, what a tricky question that would be for Cisco to ask. I've never seen this question, but imagine that question. How do you turn off VTP? A lot of people would say VTP transparent.
Right.
But the better answer now is VTP mode off. Interesting point there. So we have the server mode, the client mode, off mode, transparent mode. We've got that VTP pruning behavior. We've covered all that. One thing I'd like to point out is this famous field right here, and it's the configuration revision number. So this is really kind of the magic behind, well, who's got the latest database? So if I go to this switch 2 system and I create another VLAN, let's do VLAN lucky number 777, and I name it test 2, and we end, and now we do a show VTP status once again, we should see that our configuration revision number has incremented to 3. And we had configuration revision number 2 over on the neighbor. And so if we go over there, we do our show VTP status over there, we see we're at configuration revision number 3. And if we do our show VTP, show VLAN brief, we should have, Ronnie, the 777 VLAN, and we do. The configuration revision number is so important because that's why everyone's afraid of this protocol. Yeah. What could happen is you could take a switch that has a configuration revision number of like 10 in our example, and it could have no VLANs at all, and you introduce that into your domain and you blow away the VLANs on all the devices. So that's where it gets dangerous. They invented VTP version 3 to add a whole bunch of protections and a whole bunch of security. Fortunately, we don't have to study that for Encore.
So let's make sure that we remind everybody what you just said, because there's a lot that goes on there that maybe people don't think about. So it's the higher the revision number. If that gets introduced into a system that has a lower revision number, that means that whatever VLAN information was on that system that had a lower number, it can get overridden by the higher one.
Yes.
And so I've seen this happen one time where it literally was an old switch that had to get put into place because a new switch died, and they plugged it in, and then all of a sudden they said, where's my VLANs? They actually disappeared from here. And then they actually looked at the revision number. It was something like 47 versus the ones that were actually like on 3 or 5, whatever it was. So here is something that's actually very important, okay? Now, the idea of the transparent, let's make sure we review that.
Absolutely.
Putting it in transparent mode, the revision number is, do we remember what the actual revision number is?
I don't.
0.
Oh, that makes sense.
So you don't actually ever, and that one never increments. So with that, the transparent, it never increments. So that's why you're never going to get changes on that transparent mode server.
So cool. And one last thing, I suppose we better show, because if I was doing VTP, I would definitely do this. Don't forget, even with VTP version 1, which we're doing right now, you have this ability. Set a VTP password.
Absolutely.
Yep. And, obviously you just set it. I'll go ahead and do that. Cisco. And now I'm not going to have synchronization between these two boxes, because this side, I absolutely am going to have to go and put that password in, or there will be no joy when it comes to VTP functioning between those devices.
I'm glad you actually brought this back up, because it actually made me remember something else too, is the very fact the domain name is case sensitive as well. Okay. So for us here at IT Pro TV, just like what Anthony named it, if he goes in and he says, oh, I don't know if it actually was IT Pro TV in all caps or was lowercase or proper case or whatever it might be, that is a difference. And that way the VTP won't ever actually exchange. And so if you're not getting the updates that you need to, you may want to check not only the password, but also the capitalization or the case sensitivity of the domain name.
I love it. And if you look at my console right here, our marketing department, sorry, Val, Val would be very upset with me, because I did IT Pro TV in all caps. I did it that way, as I've mentioned in other Encore shows, so that I take case sensitivity out of the equation, Ronnie. But marketing would be very upset with me, because, of course, when we say IT Pro TV in public, it's capital I, capital T, capital P, lowercase r, lowercase o, capital T, capital V, and you don't really care about that. But thanks for letting me go on that little soapbox.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Just a few little details here since we have that. So the screen that you were just showing with the MD5 hash there, that's how you can compare between those switches, whether or not you actually are on the same revision as well. So if you can't remember in terms of, is this revision 3 or 5, you can always match up that MD5 digest between those switches. And if they match up, then you actually do end up knowing. So even if you go, I don't know if it's the same or is this different, this is how you actually can do that consistency check between them too.
I love it. And remember, VTP can be dangerous,
yes,
as we've alluded to in this episode. But just remember, you have gear here at IT Pro TV that you can jump on. And how you master a technology like this, I sound like a broken record, you get in there, practice, practice, practice in a perfectly safe environment to practice in. This would be a really bad feature to practice in your company's production network.
Not a good one.
This is not one of those ones you want to play with there.
All right, Anthony. Well, thank you again for helping us to kind of get a refresher on VTP. So if you're jumping directly into the CCNP and you haven't actually taken maybe the CCNA, right? So you said, hey, I can do this. Well, remember, these are some of the features that you will learn about also in the CCNA. So make sure you check that out. If you haven't, you can practice there, as well as what Anthony said. Reminder of these features here. Remember the different modes that we went over, as well as the configuration numbers. Understand what those modes will actually allow you to do. And the easiest way for you that is to do the practice, as Anthony said. Well, there's many other shows for us to actually go ahead and accomplish, but for this one, we're going to go ahead and end it right here. For IT Pro TV, I'm your host, Ronnie Wong.
And I'm Anthony Sequeira.
Stay tuned right here for more of your CCNP Encore show.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.